Here are the materials necessary to construct the box. First, an Arduino Maker Zero. It's in its conductive foam right now. We'll leave it there until we're ready to insert it into the terminal block. An Adafruit 328 battery, properly wired for this project. A Sunfounder Rfid reader module. A 3-watt 8-ohm speaker with a JST connector at the end. An audio amplifier board. In this case, we're going to use the PAM 8406. That's a reference to the chip that's on the board. A micro USB extension cable. So this part will attach to the Arduino. This part will mount to the enclosure itself and allow you to connect a USB cable to the enclosure rather than trying to connect it directly to the Arduino. A screw terminal block made specifically for the Arduino Maker series of boards, and this is what's going to make it possible for us to do the entire assembly without any soldering. Also, you'll note there are 4 screws on these posts. Those are for mounting the board to this terminal board. A micro SD to micro SD extension cable. Much the same idea. It allows us to insert an SD card into the enclosure rather than directly into the Arduino. This is a JST 2.0 male and female connector cable. Actually, this is what we're calling the female connector cable. We'll use this to connect the speaker to the screw down terminal block toward the end of the project. Here's a stereo headphone plug that has bare wires exposed on the other end. It's a 90-degree angle, which is important to fit nicely in the enclosure. A micro SD card, that's where we're going to have the WAV files installed, and anything larger than a 2 gigabyte card will work. However, at this point in time, 8 gigabytes are the most inexpensive cards out there. We'll be using a few of these male to female jumper wires. They come in large ribbons like this, but we'll only be using 7 for our assembly. Similarly, we'll be using only about 2 of these male to male jumper wires. So you'll have several extra of those to construct more boxes. We'll be using this small Momentary switch with exposed ends on the wires to reset the Arduino whenever we need to from the outside of the enclosure. It's important that you have a data USB connector. This is a mini USB. It's possible to buy charging cables, but you'll need a data connector or a data cable for this purpose. Data cables are also capable of charging, but charging cables aren't capable of exchanging data with the Arduino. You'll need a RFID tag like this that meets the ISO 1443A standard. All you need is one for validating and verifying the assembly, but you'll need more than that if you're going to be putting tags on things for use with the box. This is our recommended RFID tag reader writer. You'll need that to encode the word different, if you're following our instructions completely, the word different on the RFID tag. It's a USB connect. It's USB connected to your PC. You'll need a set of these number 4 by 3/8 inch sheet metal screws, and the exact number depends on the type of audio amplifier you're installing. We're installing one that will require an extra 3, so we need 16 of these rather than 13. You need 4 of these number 6 hex nuts. Those are actually going to be installed during the printing process into the top of the enclosure. But I show you them here just for illustration. You'll need 4 number 6 1.5 inch flathead machine screws. So it has a flat head. That allows us to attach the feet to the enclosure in 2 different ways. And finally, we'll be using 4 of these small round rubber feet. There's an alternative set of feet you can use. You can use adhesive bumper pads, but we'll be using these feet here for this assembly. Finally, you'll need, bring these in one at a time, you'll need 4 3D printed parts. This is the top of the enclosure, and it already has the nuts embedded in these posts in the 4 corners. You'll need a base to have been 3D printed. And you'll need 2 other pieces, a bracket for the RFID, this RFID card to mount it, and you'll need a wire clip for holding speaker wires in place. So those 4 parts are 3D printed. Alright, we'll begin the first step in the assembly process. I'm going to assume that you've already prepared your software environment on your PC, that you've prepared the micro SD card with all the sound files on it, you have an RFID tag that's ready for testing purposes, and that you've 3D printed your enclosure. This step will involve placing items into the base of the enclosure. We'll be putting the Maker 0 card into the terminal breakout board, inserting the Momentary switch for resetting the device, and placing the Adafruit battery into the enclosure. From a tool standpoint, we need a screwdriver with a number 1 Phillips head to insert these sheet metal screws. We'll also need a piece of paper and a scissors. In fact, we're going to use the scissors right at the start here to clean up the sacrificial layer, sacrificial bridge in the base. So it's right here. See some very fine lines there. We're just going to use the scissors to clean those out. Just stick it in there, rotate it a bit, do it from the top, again from the bottom. Just want to get those fine little hairs of filament out of there. All right. So the first step is going to be to install this momentary switch into the base. And it comes with a bolt and a locking washer. Just take the bolt off and we'll insert the momentary switch in this direction from the top down. Actually, not quite yet. We're going to have to get this nut down into this hexagonal opening. And that could be a little tricky. It doesn't always want to go nice and flat. So we'll use our screwdriver to poke it down nice and flat. Also, I've got a set of needle nose pliers here just in case I need to be able to grab something small like a screw that's gotten away from me. Alright, so now that that's down deep in the opening and nice and flat, I'll take the momentary switch with this cut washer on it and gently push it up through this hole and begin screwing it in place. And I'm going to turn just this barrel of the switch. I'm not going to touch these wires because I don't want to take a chance of breaking those wires. We'll just turn gently. Feel for the, yep, that's off. Make sure that it's nice and straight up and down. And we'll turn that barrel a little bit more until we can see that this washer is nice and flat. Right, that's done. We'll move these wires out of the way. Forgot one piece. We're also going to put this in place. And you'll see that it has a flat edge and a rounded edge. We're going to put the flat edge up against the outside of the enclosure. But first we need to take out these screws, and they use a number 2 Phillips. Again, the flat edge goes against the outside, so we'll put it in this way, turn it over, and we'll put these screws back in. Tighten them all the way down. Next we'll insert the battery in the case, and we'll take off this piece of masking tape. Pull these out a little bit. The battery goes right down here and slides into place between those stands. Set that aside. Now we're going to put the Arduino into this terminal block. And now we can take it out of the out of the conductive foam. So we're going to insert these pins here into these headers. Take your time. It's a lot of pins to be inserting into the headers all at one time. Oh, before I start this, I need to take out these 4 mounting screws using the number 1 Phillips head screwdriver. So we'll take these 4 out of these pedestals. That's what's going to hold the Maker Zero in place. There's one. Tiny little screws. Alright, now we're going to insert the Maker Zero in to the headers on the terminal breakout board, and be very careful lining up the headers with the pins, and gently pushing straight down till they're in place, and the bottom of the Maker Zero is right up against these risers. Now we can go put all those little screws back in. Alright, so that's ready for insertion. But first we're going to create a barrier between the battery and the underside of this board. And we're going to do that by just taking a piece of paper and folding it twice. And then we're going to cut it away from these folds here to approximately the size of the battery. I guess I could have done that while I had the battery out. In fact, that may be a good thing to do here. So about the size of the battery. Doesn't have to be perfect. As you can see, my cutting isn't perfect. That battery back in. We're going to set this on top of the battery. Like that. Now we'll attach this breakout board in this manner. Just lay it on top of these little stands here. And we'll use these sheet metal screws to hold it in place. Same, we're still using the number 1 Phillips head. It'll be a little tight the first time you go into the plastic of the base, and hopefully it's the last time you go in. But if you forget a step, you can always take it apart, put it back together again. Alright, we're ready for the first test of our assembly. We're also going to take this moment to charge the battery. So we will plug this USB cable into the port on the Maker Zero. And the first thing I notice is, because I've got the other end of the cord attached to my PC right now, this little power light, the green light here, lights up. You can see that. This little green light here. Also, the yellow LED on the board will start flashing. That's the default program that comes on every Arduino. It just flashes the LED once every second. We'll be replacing the software that's on the Maker Zero now with our own software in a few more steps. So we're going to now just test that we've got our environment set up properly on the laptop, and we'll look to see if we can verify that we can retrieve board info using the Arduino IDE. Alright, so the steps involved here, we've already set up the environment. We need to ensure that the IDE is speaking to the Arduino on the proper COM port. It's already called out for me here. I'll choose that port. And we'll notice that it says in the lower corner here, Arduino Maker Zero on COM3. That's what we just selected. So the only step now is to get the board info. And it's not very large, but it was able to go to the Arduino Maker and grab the board info and display it on the screen here. Now we'll return to the assembly itself, and we'll plug the battery into this port on this side. There's a ridge on this connector, and that needs to be up when doing this assembly. And you'll know you have the red wire will be on your right if you're looking at the board like I am, and the black wire will be on your left. So plug it in there, and what we see now is we have a green light and an amber light, or an orange light, lit on the board. The orange light reflects the fact that the battery is charging. And right now we're just going to wait until that light goes out. It's been about 2 hours, and the orange light and the green light have both gone out, meaning the battery is completely charged. And so we'll complete the test by disconnecting the battery from the Arduino and disconnecting the USB cable from the PC. And as it says in the instructions, we're not going to reattach the battery until later in the process, and we'll call that moment out specifically. For step 2 in the assembly process, we're going to need the micro SD to micro SD extension cable, a micro SD card, and a bit of masking tape. First thing we're going to do is insert the SD card into the socket of the cable. Then we're going to insert the other end of this into the Arduino. Next we'll take the socket end of the cable and we'll slide it into this little rectangular area back here. And we'll tear off a bit of masking tape, about 1.5 inches or so, maybe 30 millimeters worth. And I'll square that off a bit. I'm going to gently lay this ribbon cable forward onto the headers of the Arduino. I'll take this masking tape, put it on top, and just tape the ribbon cable to the sides of the header. Okay, don't want to be too sharp with this turn here, so we wanted to make sure this is a gentle lay down, not a pull. And that's really all there is to this step from an assembly standpoint. We just need to do a test of it now. Okay, it's time to verify our second step in the assembly process. We'll begin by connecting the Arduino to the PC with the USB cable. Flat side up. And we'll see the light over here, the green light saying that we're powering the Arduino. And now we'll test to see if we can retrieve the board info again. We'll choose Tools and Get Board Info. And we did successfully get board info, so we haven't damaged anything in the process. Now we'll install the software to make the box work, and we've already opened that software in the IDE. We're going to first test that we can compile it by clicking on this check button over here. It says verify to the right of that, but it's a compile of the software. And we'll look for some final words to appear down here in white. This green progress bar tells how close we are to completing that compiling process. And it does say compiling sketch here. Alright, so we have good solid programming code here, and next we will upload that software to the Arduino. That's this arrow button which says upload now, and shortly after we press this button we're also going to go over here and press this button which opens the serial monitor. So press that, come across, open the serial monitor. Okay, it's compiled again, and it's done uploading. We should see some stuff appear here as we did. In the serial monitor, it says it was able to properly initialize the SD card. It made an attempt to open up startup.wave that did that successfully. And we didn't hear anything because we don't have a speaker attached to the board yet. But this is all an indication that the SD card was read properly, the file was found, it was readable, and we're ready to move on to the next step. So we'll close the serial monitor window, and we'll go back now and we'll disconnect the USB cable from the Arduino. Alright, let's move on to third step in the assembly process, where we will attach the speaker to the base and wire up the RFID reader card. First step is to attach the speaker to the base using 4 of these sheet metal screws and a number 1 Phillips screwdriver. Okay, then we'll take the speaker wire and we'll wrap it around these wire posts here. Just doing a little figure eight. And we'll leave that little tag end there, just sitting free. The wire will tend to unravel a bit as you let it go. Alright, next we're going to take this USB extender cable and we're going to wrap it along the side with just a tiny little turn here. Not too sharp, but we want to keep it down so it doesn't interfere with the top when the top goes on. Then we'll bring this part across here and then we'll tip it back with the flat end of this plug upward. Flat end of the plug upward. And we'll insert it into the USB connector on the Arduino. And the last thing we'll do is we'll take the wire clip and we'll put it on top of these posts. To hold those in place, I'm going to take the needle nose pliers and pull on this wire a little bit here so it extends out where I can get easy access to it. That's from the speaker. Alright, so those are in place. Now we'll take 7 of these male to female jumper wires. We'll just tear them off. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. We don't need any more of these for this installation, but we'll keep them attached to each other. And then I'll get out the instructions. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start on one side, it doesn't really matter which, and I'm going to start writing down in this table from top to bottom the colors of the wires. So the first one looks brown. The second one is red. Third one is orange. Fourth one is yellow. I'm going to skip this row. The fifth one is green. Then blue. Then purple. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to be inserting these tips here into various slots in the screw down terminals, and I will be holding those in place by screwing these little screws down. To do that, I'm going to change my Phillips screwdriver over to a number 3 slot head or flathead screwdriver. And according to this chart, I need the brown wire to go into slot 7. So this is slot 7 right here. The first thing I'll have to do is open up the slot. There's a little gate that drops as I unscrew, and so you should watch that just to make sure that you are unscrewing and also that you'll know where to insert the male end of the wire when you get to that point. So I'm going to actually separate these just a little bit because I think I'll need some freedom here. Let's take the brown wire and put it in slot 7 above the gate. Tighten it up. And I'll give it a little tug just to make sure I have it. Then the red wire goes in slot 9, which is this slot. We just repeat for each one of the colors of wire. Again, do a tug. The orange goes into slot 8. That's the one in the middle of those two. Tug. Yellow goes into slot 10. That's up here in this rank. Make sure we're above that little gate. Tug. The green wire goes to the ground. So we'll go back to this row down here, and there's your ground. Green goes to ground. And tug. I don't like that one. Open it up. Do that again. Make sure I'm in the center of the slot. Tighten it down. That's better. Blue goes to 6, which is right here. Above the gate. Trying to get out of the way of the camera as I do this. And purple goes to 3.3 volts. That's this slot here that says 3V3. And that'll be our last one. In the center of the gate. And a tug. Make sure we got it. Alright, so those are in the right slots. Next thing it says is insert the male ends. Well, that's what I did. And we tightened it, pulled gently on each wire. We did. Now we're going to slide the female ends of these jumper wires over these pins on the RFID card. And we're going to try to do them kind of as a group. That can be easy or difficult depending. And we're going to base it on the colors again. So brown should go in the SDA pin, red in the SCK pin, and they should be roughly in that order on here. So if you look at the top of the pins, you'll see small 3-letter indicators for what each pin is. And the first one is SDA, then SCK, then MOSI, then MISO, which is the order that we see here. So brown, from left to right, brown, then red. Try to keep these in order. Make sure nobody gets out of order. Don't want to be off screen here too much. Might have to do these a few at a time, because I'm definitely having trouble. 1, 2, 3. Then yellow. And then, according to this, we skip the next one. So we'll skip that pin. And we'll go to our last two. Yep. Didn't skip the right one here. Okay, all of them are in place. And instructions say triple check at this point. So we have brown on SDA, red on SCK, orange on MOSI, the writing is kind of small, yellow on MISO, then we skip the pin that says IRQ, and the next one is green, goes to GND or ground, blue to the RST pin, and purple goes to the 3.3 volt pin. So those are all connected. I could check it again, make it a full 3 times I suppose. And now we are ready for our verification step. Now this time we're going to connect the USB cable to the panel mount, because now the panel mount wire is connected to the Arduino, and we'll say flat end goes to the outside. And let's just hang off the side. We'll see a couple of things. We have power again. We have a red light lit on our RFID card. So it's getting power as well. Let's begin by checking our connections and seeing if we can retrieve the board info. Everything looks good. We're going to upload the software again, just so we can make sure we're looking at a clean serial monitor. And we'll go across and open the serial monitor. Let's finish the upload. And again we see that it initialized the SD card properly, that it opened the startup sound file, that it met all the requirements of a file that it can read and play. We're going to clear the output, that's this button in the lower right hand corner. And now we're going to test to see whether our RFID card, or RFID tag rather, can be properly read. So we're just going to take that, let's get back on screen here. We're going to take this RFID tag, which should be encoded with the word different, and place it on the RFID reader. If we look at the serial monitor window, we see that it read the tag with the content different, that it was able to find a file called different.wave and it met all the expectations to be able to play it. So we have properly verified step 3 in the assembly process. All right, our 4th step in the assembly process will be to install the momentary switch so we can do resets, and to connect up the audio amplifier to the speaker. We'll need a scissors for this. We'll need the audio amplifier, a stereo headphone plug, a couple of male-to-male jumper wires, and this female JST connector. And we'll also need our number 3 slot head or regular head screwdriver. So our first step is we will connect up the momentary switch to a couple of slots on the breakout terminal here, screw down terminal. So we're going to connect one wire to the RST connector here, and the other one to ground. And it doesn't matter which one we do to which. I guess traditionally black is ground, so we'll connect that one to ground. But again, it really doesn't matter. The one thing that complicates things a bit here is that we don't have a nice long piece of metal. So I think I'll do the RST first, because it's going to be on the inside when we're done. So there's the RST port. Gate is down. We'll take the red wire across. And we want to make sure that we capture just the metal part and not the plastic part here. It's because we want to make sure we have a good connection. So down further. Insert. Tighten up. And tug a little bit. And we'll do the same thing with the ground. We're already down there. A little bit, we should be there. Alright, now time to connect up the audio amplifier. As I said before, we have a PAM 8406 amplifier here, and the first step will be to take our JST connector, and we'll connect the black wire to the R minus port here, which is the negative right speaker, and the red connector will connect to this one here, which is the positive right speaker. And then it doesn't really matter which of these we use, right or left, as long as we have power and ground connected properly, and even then it probably isn't terribly important. So go ahead and open both of these up. They behave just like the gates on these other screw down terminals. So again, we want to capture just the metal part of the wire. Tighten that up and tug a bit. Loosen this up a little further. Red wire above the gate. Tighten it up. Tug a little bit. We should be set there. Alright, now we need two of these male-to-male jumper wires. And we'll just tear them here. I got a brown and a red, it looks like. You can leave them connected to each other. And we'll fill in our table. With brown and red. Alright, so we're going to go first into the audio amp slots. So here's the audio amp. We're going to put the brown wire into the DC 5 volt negative slot. That's this one here, the one on the right, and the DC 5 volt positive is the one on the left. Brown on the negative side. Oh, I'll take it down some more. Red on the positive side. Tug to make sure we have good connections. Tighten that up some more. Good connection. Okay. Now we're going to insert the other ends by their color into the slots on the fourth row. That's this row up here. So brown will go into ground, the GND slot. And red goes into the 3v3 slot. This way to give you a better view. Little tug, okay. Now we'll take the headphone plug, and it has 3 wires at the end. We're going to cut off the black wire, which represents ground. We don't need it. So we'll separate it from the other wires. Move this out of the way so we can see against it better. Move that one out of the way, and we'll cut it close to the insulation. So that just leaves us the 2 other wires, the red and the white. And we'll kind of twist those 2 together. Just the tips. Right? And then we'll put that end, and we just twisted. We'll put that into the A0 slot here. So we'll loosen that up. And as before, we want to make sure we capture just the metal and not the insulation around those wires. All right, just gentle tug, make sure we've got it. Alright, now we'll take the wire for the speaker right here, and we'll insert it into JST connector on the audio amp. Note that the audio amp JST connector has a slot. We want to make sure that the slot from the speaker JST connector goes and aligns with that slot. We should end up with black going into black and red going into red. Just like that. Then we're going to insert this stereo plug into the stereo headphone jack of the audio amp. Also, I want to make sure that our volume control knob is in the center. This particular audio amp has an off position as well. So we'll just look for center approximately. And now we're ready to test our connections for the audio amp and speaker. So the first thing we're going to do is insert the USB connector from the PC into the USB connector on the bottom of the box, flat end to the outside. And already we hear the traditional startup sound. So we know we've got everything is actually working very well right now. But we'll continue with our testing. We did hear the startup sound. Let's verify again that we can retrieve the board info. And we can, so we're properly connected to the board. And we'll again upload the software and quickly open the serial monitor. We should hear the startup sound again. There it was. So it did successfully find the startup.wav file and played it. We'll clear the output. And this time we'll press the sample tag to the RFID reader.
Different.
And we heard the word different spoken by the box. It did recognize it as different, played the different.wav file, and we heard the result because we have the speaker and audio amp set up. One more time.
Different.
All right, we see the result again on the serial monitor. Now we'd like to test the reset button. So talk about using the eraser end of a pencil. I don't have a pencil with me right now. We'll just turn the box over a little bit and we'll put this pin in here just to press the reset button. And we hear the startup sound again. So the reset button is working properly. And we should be in position to assemble the box as a whole. Okay, time for the final step in the assembly process. And we're actually going to start with a little bit of disassembly before we do the complete assembly. We'll need the top for the enclosure. We'll need the RFID card restraining bracket. We'll need 4 of these 1.5 inch number 6 machine screws, 4 rubber feet, and 8 of the sheet metal screws. We'll also need both the number 1 Phillips head and the slot head or flathead screwdriver. First thing we're going to do is disconnect some of the connections to the audio amp. I'll also move some of this out of the way. We want to be able to move that around freely and mount it. So we'll take the stereo plug out. We'll disconnect the ground and 3.3 volt wires. And we'll disconnect the speaker as well. Pull on this male side, work it out. It's a little tight. May need some help. There we go. Okay. Let's move this out of the way. We're going to mount the audio amp in this space. With 4 of the sheet metal screws. And that'll be the end of the, no, not quite. I was going to say that'd be the end of the screws, but we still have the RFID card. Oh, you'll notice that I also inserted the volume control knob into this little hole at the end here. That gives me access through this hole to the volume control knob to set the volume of the device. Alright, now we'll put the so now we'll mount the RFID card in place. What I'm going to do is bring these guys end to end and take the RFID card over and place it on these little pegs. These two holes here go on the little pegs in the top. So with the pins coming up. Then we have this RFID restraining bracket, and it will go with these little pins into the back holes in the bracket. Like that. And you'll see the little opening sits over the top of the little radio frequency symbol on the card. And we'll hold the whole thing in place with 4 sheet metal screws. Alright, so that's held in place now. We just need to reconnect all these parts of the audio amplifier. And we might have to reposition this a bit to get those where we want them. Bring you around like this, I think. And we'll start while we can by bringing these two together. Okay, so now the speaker is connected to the audio amp. I'll plug this in to the headphone jack. You do a little bit of twisting here, shorten up that wire. Make sure it's all the way in. And then these two, I'm going to look back at my table just to make sure I have the colors right. Brown goes to positive, or goes to ground, and red goes to 3.3 volts. So we have the 3.3 volt here, and the ground there. Brown goes to ground, red goes to 3.3 volts. Need the other screwdriver. must have gone below the gate instead of on top of the gate. Tug, tug. Okay. Now, after all this time, we're going to plug the battery back in with the little ridge up. Okay, see things are lighting up inside, and we hear the startup sound. Now we mostly just have to kind of move things around here a bit. Whoa, let's point out that there's a little notch here in the base that goes with this little notch in the top. It keeps them aligned properly. So just gently arrange the wires so they're not getting caught between the top and the bottom. And especially I want to see this ribbon cable here. Not compressed in any way. Okay, I'll turn it over. It's time to put the feet on. So, take a foot, put a machine screw through it, and down into the slot there. So, you go back to the number 2. To the number 2 Phillips head, and we're going to push through that sacrificial layer that sits on top of the screw or the nut that's in the corner. And the last foot. And there we go. Fully assembled unit. And let's do a test real quick. Let's reset it. Good. Let's test out the RFID tag.
Different.
Let's adjust the volume. We'll bring it up.
Different. Different. Different.
Alright, so we have a fully assembled, doesn't have a official name yet. So we have a fully assembled box here. It's ready to go. It'll function for many hours on the battery. When we need to recharge it, we just recharge it through this USB connector. If we need to put new sound files on, we remove the SD card, put the sound files on the SD card, reinsert. And then we do a reset, everything's ready to go.